Good afternoon and welcome to the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. Secretary, will you please take roll?
Assemblywoman Backus. Assemblyman Carter. Present. Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblywoman Hardy. Assemblywoman Howdigy. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblywoman Torres. Assemblyman Yeager. Assemblyman Urick. Chair Marzola.
And I am here. Thank you. Please mark all members present. Welcome everyone that is here in Carson City, anyone in Las Vegas, and anyone listening over the internet. Please make sure to turn off or silent all of your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in by the door. If you have any handouts for the committee, please provide 20 copies to the committee secretary. When testifying, please turn on your microphone and clearly state and spell your name for the record. I expect courtesy and respect in all our interactions, even if we may not agree. And with that, we will start our work session. Our work session is to take action on measures the committee has heard in previous meeting. It is not customary for the committee to take testimony or otherwise rehear any bills. However, I may invite a witness to come up for clarifications or questions during our consideration of a measure. I will now begin the work session with Senate Bill 210. I will turn the meeting over to our policy analyst today, Mrs. Thornton.
Thank you, Chair Diane Thornton, Legislative Council Bureau. Our first bill on work session is Senate Bill 210, which revises provisions governing state boards and commissions, sponsored by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs on behalf of the Sunset Subcommittee of the Legislative Commission and heard in committee on April 26th. And there are no proposed amendments to this bill. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? I don't see any. I'll entertain a motion to do pass on Senate Bill 210.
So moved.
I have a first from Vice Chair Howdigy. Is there a second? I have a second from Assemblywoman Torres. Is there any discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be a no on this bill, not because of the value of the bill itself, but having been on commissions and having worked with governors who were both Democrats and Republicans, they've had enough trouble in finding volunteers for people to come to it, and putting this extra burden on it, I think is going to make it even more difficult for him for whoever is governor to fill some of those commissions. So I will be a no on it.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Any further discussion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Please raise your hands. Nays are Assemblyman Urick, Assemblywoman Kasama, Assemblywoman Hardy, and Assemblyman O'Neill. Motion carries. I will assign this floor statement to Assemblywoman Torres. You're welcome. Next is Senate Bill 437. Ms. Thornton, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Senate Bill 437 revises provisions governing accountants, sponsored by the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor on behalf of the Office of Finance and the Office of the Governor, heard in committee on May 5th, and there are no proposed amendments to this bill. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions on Senate Bill 437? I don't see any. I'll entertain a motion to do pass on Senate Bill 437.
So moved.
I have a first from Vice Chair Howdigy. Is there a second? I have a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Is there any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I will assign this floor statement to Assemblywoman Duran. This concludes our work session. I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 333, which revises provisions relating to virtual currency. Senator Neal, you may begin when you're ready.
Okay, good afternoon, Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. I am Senator Dina Neal, representing Senate District 4, here to present SB 333. I have a couple of comments, just kind of lay out why is this bill here? Why is this a public policy that I am seeking to make state law? So cryptocurrency scammers have stolen over $1 billion from 46,000 people since the start of 2021, according to a new Federal Trade Commission report. From October 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2020, people submitted 570 cryptocurrency investment scam reports, indicating 7.5 million in total losses. From October 1st, 2020 to March 31st of 2021, reports skyrocketed with nearly 6,792 people reporting a loss of more than $80 million on these scams. The average reported median loss was $1,900 to $2,600. About 92% of the cryptocurrency investment scam reports were from October 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2021, and they were classified as miscellaneous investments, and the consumer age ranged from 20 to 39. According to the Federal Trade Commission, 3,581 reports totaling $35 million were reported in losses related to a cryptocurrency as a method of payment. For investment frauds reported under FTC, investment-related fraud that was related to cryptocurrency from January 2021 to March 2022, it was $575 million. For romance scams, it was $185 million. For business imposters, it was $93 million. And then government imposters was $40 million. So I looked at FTC and FBI in order to create the data that I was using in order to craft the language for SB 333. So FBI Internet Crime Report of 2022 reported that business email scams represented general internet crimes from ages 50 to 59, represented 64,551 people at the price tag of $1.8 billion. Nationally, ages 60 plus represented 88,632 persons with a price tag of $3.1 billion. So why does this happen, the general investment? So typically, there is no bank to flag a suspicious transaction. They're irreversible transfers because it's crypto. None of those transactions are FDIC insured. A fake investment opportunity that was listed under the FBI represented about $575 million in crypto losses, and it was exceeded any other type. However, I'm dealing with the romance scams and other type in this bill. So the common platforms in which crypto scams happen. It's reported that 32% come from Instagram, 26% come from Facebook, 9% comes from WhatsApp, and 7% come from Telegrams. And so those are typically the platforms. So when a romance scam happens, someone befriends you on an app and says, hey, you know, I've really made this wonderful money in crypto, and they start building a relationship with the person and saying, after they've gained their trust, say, you know, would you like to invest in this crypto? Would you like to, you know, be a part of how I'm making money? And then the person sends over their money. And then the relationship potentially ends after that. And then there's no recourse, right? So typically they gain trust by befriending them. It's happened for young people, it's happened for old people, because everyone seems to be under the conception that cryptocurrency is going to be this fast money where it's you're gambling, you're going to be able to do this quick, fast investment and get this money back. In most cases, that could be true, but typically that's not true. Cryptocurrency can change minute to minute, 30 minutes, an hour. It is not a traditional investment where you go and then go through Fidelity Investments, you watch your investment grow over a year. It literally changes quickly over time. In the reporting that I saw for the FBI, it said that people 50 and older were far less likely to report losing money on cryptocurrency investment scams. But when this group did lose money on these scams, the reported individual losses were about $3,200. For the population of 21 to 49, the average loss was about $1,900 to $2,600, but the reported losses for 70 and above was about $11,708 in terms of the median loss. And so that's why I have in the bill vulnerable populations and seniors. So when a person comes in and tries to lure an individual and create victims, in Nevada, the FBI had data that in Nevada we had about 9,990 victims of internet crimes with a loss of $127 million roughly. They mostly, some of them represented business internet scams, which represented about 21,000 people. And the romance scams nationally represented 19,021. So a business email compromise or an email account compromise is when someone comes in, they acting like they're a bank, they're not a Wells Fargo, but maybe they're saying, you know, I am the, I don't know, Indigo Bank of United States. And you're thinking it's real because it's coming through your business email, so you engage. And that engagement then allows the entity or scammer on the other side to potentially get information from you. So typically what happens is they end up getting some portion of your driver's license information. They end up getting some of your passport information. And some of the victims have, because they believe it's a business email, have turned over their bank account information. So it opens the door for scam. So SB 333 does a couple of things. First few sections, all the way section 1 through 9.5 are definitions. Section 10 gives you the exclusion, who is not a part of this bill. Section 11 lays out the registration. If we don't have a registration, which is the financial division of our state, then we won't be able to capture them. So the idea was, let's create a registration system so at least we have a recording of who's doing business and who's doing cryptocurrency. Then if there is an act of fraud, which is then detailed in section 12, then at least we know who we're going after or who we're contacting. In that provision in section 12, if there is a virtual currency business that's committed an act of fraud for an older person, a vulnerable person, or someone under 21, the commissioner will then give the notice, have a hearing, and then impose a civil penalty that will not exceed 5% of the gross revenue of the virtual currency business. Section 13, basically we're creating a virtual recovery account fund using that 5%, up to 5% of the gross revenue. Then we have in section 14, what could be a potential restitution payment. And then in section 14 sub 2, we have the piece that creates the nexus of this relationship. You're a resident, you're an older person, you're a vulnerable person, you're under 21 years of age, and the commissioner has established that you fit the criteria to be eligible. And then there's a cap on the restitution payment saying that the resident can't be awarded anything beyond $10,000. Then on the bottom part of section 14, simple language allows the commissioner to create reg. Section 15 lays out the written disclosure, because we already know crypto operates in the state. We also know that we have allowed in 2019 for Bitcoin to be treated as money. You have an amendment where I amend cryptocurrency definition as requested by FID. And so in section 15, this provision in here basically says that before virtual currency, because there are some legitimate businesses, before engaging in virtual currency, you need to have a disclosure about the material risk that you are going to encounter related to this. I think that's important because I think that we need to start on the consumer fraud piece and just appropriate consumer treatment. We need to start being active in the space to prevent abuse. Section 15.5 basically says that a person shall not engage in any act or practice where they're soliciting a resident on the pursuit of a romantic or sexual relationship and using that cryptocurrency as the lure. Section 16 basically lays out that a virtual currency shall not engage with any targeted person based on their reason of age, health, economic status, or vulnerability. And then Section 17 then lays out the regulation, and then Section 17.5 talks about the amounts allocated to any separate account shall not be in any separate account or any accumulations thereof related to life insurance, which I have not had time to deal with the Division of Insurance on this particular provision. So there's probably a lot more questions there. But the reason why I put in 17.5 is because there's been activity where now crypto is being used for things such as your retirement, life insurance, and I feel like, number one, it's a bad bet. You're probably not going to cash out on that life insurance policy at any point because the value of the cryptocurrency will immediately dissipate and there will be no check to be cashed. But there are different tools and mechanisms that are now being used saying you can use your cryptocurrency for X, Y, and Z. And I feel like in terms of consumer protection, that is the wrong direction for the state to go. And I wanted to send the signal that a life insurance policy is off the table in regards to trying to get someone to put their hard-earned dollars and then have a cryptocurrency give them zero return. And so with that, Madam Chair, I'll open myself up for questions.
Thank you so much, Senator, for your presentation. Committee members, are there any questions? Assemblyman Yurick.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senator, for the presentation. It was an interesting bill as I read it, and I thought I had kind of a grasp on what you were trying to do, but then I got the amendment, and I've got another question or curiosity there, and specifically with the addition of 7.5. So, Chair, if you'll indulge me, I got a couple questions. Will that be okay? Okay, I'll try to keep it short. My first question was, again, understanding kind of this nuanced niche and where there are some abuses with virtual currencies and the scams and stuff. My question was, would most of these scams be covered under the current like fraud and generic theft statutes where it talks about obtaining money, services, and things under false pretenses, that it would be covered there? And I was curious if it would be, why is there something unique that's being grabbed here that is lost in those other statutes? So that would be my first question.
So thank you for the question, Dina Neal, for the record. Crypto has not been designated in our statutes as a way to fall under those chapters. I think we need to take special consideration of virtual currency. We've done some definition changes which allowed Bitcoin to be treated as money in our statutes in 2019. I believe that was under Senator Kekeffer's bill. However, I think we have been very limited in how we treat crypto in the state of Nevada. And I wanted to make it especially clear that although we have fraud, typically there hasn't been a remedy where crypto is at issue.
Okay, thank you for the answer to that. And then I would just say that, I don't know, it seemed like maybe a better approach without kind of expanding government and additional regulations and things like that, which is always a concern of mine, a personal concern, that we could even add into some of the fraud and theft statutes, you know, that would include language like this. Because again, I think it is targeted, and I believe it's so new and nuanced that it might be worth mentioning in there. So it's just a thought. But my other question, again, out of respect for time and my colleagues, is the proposed amendment to Section 7.5, and of course, I'm a little sensitive to this on the heels of AB 231, where one of my colleagues and I, we addressed a concern about this additional language in the UCC bill that came forward. But truly, as I look closer at it, I don't think I have as much of a concern with it, except for by defining money here in Section 7.5, it looks like you're talking about specific, like centralized digital currency and my guess is it would exclude things like Bitcoin or other issues, correct? And if so, I did just kind of a quick word search in the bill that exists. It looks like the only place that money is even referenced in the bill is and throughout the statute that you're creating here is in reference to that special account, the reimbursement account. And so how would this definition align with that account? And I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Dina Neal for the record. So FID asked me to add in the definition of money because it wasn't added. Because they felt it was important to distinguish money versus virtual currency or alternate currency. Bitcoin, I included in the amendment under sub C, and legal will have to finesse that because it includes virtual currency that is now defined as money. That was me drawing in Bitcoin, right? Because of the prior statute in 2019, where in Nevada, we have now defined Bitcoin as money. And so a cryptocurrency business who could engage in a scam, I wanted to draw them into the bill to also make sure that they register as well, just in case they fall into harming someone that's in a vulnerable population.
Great, and I thought that was your intent. I'm just curious as to, by adding this particular definition of money in this section, for example, I look at section 12, sub 2 on page 5. It's talking about the money collected by the commissioner from the civil penalty imposed, that it's going to limit that money to include this particular definition of money in 7.5 that is not dealing with hard currency, at least that I see.
So thank you for the question, Senator Dina Neal. But the way I read section 12, which is sub 2, lines 6 through 8, is that when the money collected by the commissioner from the civil penalty is that commissioner will not be accepting crypto in payment. They will be accepting cold hard cash with the American dollar.
Thank you. I think I see it. Thank you.
Assemblyman O'Neill, did you have a question? Or was it answered?
I think I want to dovetail on my colleague's question. I'm a little confused. Right now, we get the email scams from Nigeria. The Queen of Nigeria or somebody wants me to, if I give them $2,000, they'll give me $10 million once they get out of Nigeria or someplace. And I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between those frauds and this fraud. We have trouble because of the interstate and tracking them. Now we're using a cryptocurrency that's on a blockchain technology that is already challenged when it's being used by various drug cartels to transfer money around because it is so protected in that blockchain technology. I'm trying to figure out the enforcement part of this.
Thank you for the question.
If you could help me, please.
So, Dina Neal, for the record, one thing to be sure, if the Federal Trade Commission and the FBI are tracking it, I think the enforcement side is happening, right? Although recent, but they have been engaging, at least in tracking, I believe, 2018, if not 2017, forward, right? So I felt comfort adding this into law, knowing that the Federal Trade Commission was already reporting, documenting the scams with cryptocurrency. In addition, that the FBI was doing the same thing on the other side, and that it is now an actual legitimate business that we have given, I guess, a placehold in the state of Nevada. And so we need to start looking at cryptocurrency because we are watching it play out. And so is the commission, FID. And so it seemed appropriate because the advancement of it, the use on social media, regular citizens purchasing it, that I wanted to take the step into the state of Nevada doing consumer protections for our people who are now engaging in buying crypto, because from the data that I had during my interim revenue committee, where I had a full-on conversation with the Federal Reserve on crypto and the impact of crypto in the state of Nevada, it is alive and well and activated in this state. And so this helped me to frame that I wanted to go deeper and further, because at the time when I had the Federal Reserve come and present to the interim revenue committee, we were talking about using crypto for gaming. And I was absolutely against it. And I was trying to figure out whether or not the Gaming Control Board was actually considering accepting crypto at the table for gambling. And that opened our eyes to a lot of things on the growth and development of the market.
And may I just ask, you probably don't have the numbers, would be my guess. You were saying the Bureau or the FBI is tracking this, but their prosecutions have been extremely, extremely low because of it all being internet and international-based activities. And that's what I was looking at, is the enforcement side of this, which you did give me information on, but I'm still a little confused. I think I need to digest some
let me add to that. Having a registration system is going to go a long way in identifying who is playing. And that will help, I think, the federal-state relationship in regards to at least the state is taking the initiative to get folks registered and figure out, like, who is doing what. We're going to find that out in several ways, because people have said too, well, how do you know that, how are you going to get them to come in? Well, hopefully they're going to come in through the vehicle of the resident who has then been scammed, right? And then we're going to identify who that person, that corporation is, and then be able to track them. I actually felt great comfort that the FBI was involved in this already, because I felt like our registration system is just going to enhance enforcement to then capture and encapsulate and identify who is doing business in the state. And when an allegation comes forward, we at least have a benchmark. I saw it as the same thing when we dealt with the dollar loans, right? Having a system, identify what's going on, and if there was some kind of situation that would happen, at least we have a registration.
I appreciate that. And I guess I'm just also thinking, a crook isn't going to register. He'll still do business. And that gets back to the prosecution. So I do appreciate, I truly do, and thank you for the time, Chair.
Committee members, any additional questions? Assemblywoman Kasama.
Thank you, Chair. Boy, I agree there's so many issues in this area, and, we have teenagers in their back bedroom thinking they're millionaires and trading and all kinds of crazy things going on. But I'm just wondering, in this bill, how would this bill distinguish between an act constituting fraud and then just a bad investment? Because we have a lot of bad investments out there too. How would you be able to determine that?
So I think that guidance would come from the FTC. So FTC has really laid out exactly in a series of reports exactly how the scams happen, exactly how the luring happens. And that initial contact and those pieces that a person then comes in and identifies, saying, this person befriended me, they then lured me into this relationship, they said these things, I have these emails which show that they asked me for X, they told me they had, this cryptocurrency investment, and this cryptocurrency investment was going to, help me make, $500K by the end of the week, et cetera, right? So romance scams, I think, are easier. The business email scams, I think, because they're coming through the business and there's a way to track through that corporate email that, number one, this cryptocurrency investment scam found its way through your corporation, then you have a track of who engaged and when they engaged because it came through the business. I also noticed that when I was reading the reports, that they really have spelled out a lot of information the FTC has on all of the several categories, and so has the FBI. And so I figured this is going to help us to frame what that reg process is on the back end, because it's not actually not a myth. It's very calculated, and it falls into several categories. And I think fraud is going to be treated because it's in the statute, but there's a difference when we talk about the luring.
Thank you for that. Are there any other states that have enacted anything like this?
You know, I did not look to see that. I only looked at the reports from the FBI, and I know that it's just being nationally reported, but I did not look to see if another state has done a crypto scamming policy. Typically, like when I come up with a public policy idea is because I see it happening in the state of Nevada. And then I go and try to figure out, it's been on my list for a long time to figure out how to deal with it, but I wanted to watch the behavior. And after it became just more than an anomaly and then a day-to-day activity where we're actually seeing it on Facebook, seeing the actual ads, here I made this money, see my account, see this is what I was able to do. And it really worried me because I had people that were part of my Facebook groupings, right? As elected officials, we all have people who befriend us for some random reason or another. And looking at their story, and I'm saying, oh, he's selling crypto, and selling it to other people on Facebook. Poor choice. And that really made me want to get further and deeper involved in this because I was just like, somebody's going to lose their money and there is no recourse.
Committee members, any additional questions? Last one.
Thank you, Chair. And it's not a question. It is just, for the record, I want to confess I misread this amendment, so I apologize for that earlier question. You clarified it. I feel much better about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator, I have one or two questions. This is a new space for me. I like to be able to touch my money, and so crypto is just very new to me in my brain. On section, I believe it's 12, where you essentially want to tax the bad actors. Why not tax everyone in that space instead of the bad actors?
Because it's probably bad, but no, sorry. Dean and Neal, I was like, because it's probably bad public policy.
Well, and when I say everyone, and when I say everyone, I mean everyone in the crypto space.
I think if I did that, I think the challenge would be you're going after me, and I'm a good actor, number one. And we've heard arguments that dragging someone into a fight that it doesn't belong to them, I think is probably inappropriate, right? And I always want to stay with who is doing the wrong thing, right? I've talked to some of the groups, and they understand that there are some good players, right, who are just trying to use the investment. They love it. They like trying to flip the money, drag everyone in, and you're not even doing anything that's hurting someone.
Okay, so I get that. So I guess that leads to my second question, and maybe it's just, I don't know. Is everyone who is selling crypto in our state, are they being taxed in any way? Is that a thing?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
In digital currency?
Correct.
No, ma'am.
Okay. I think I maybe need to learn more about crypto. Definitely not investing in it.
So let me clarify this, because now that Bitcoin is considered money, and I have to pull that statute to see if that then drew them in as a regular business entity, and it's my understanding that it did, meaning that in the Bitcoin space, because they were then captured, they would still fall under our regular tax policy. But I'd have to pull that statute, and I have my laptop clearly not connected to any power source since 8 a.m. and it's not up. But that potentially could exist in the Bitcoin from 2019 when we captured them as a legitimate business. But I don't have the answer because I can't, my computer is dead. But in virtual, no. And the only reason why I know how much is happening in the digital space is because I've had the digital goods bill 3 sessions. And we're not taxing, I have currency, digital currency in that bill.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. And I'll have legal, probably not right now, but find those answers for us and submit it to the committee as well. Committee members, any additional questions? Thank you, Senator. We will move to testimony in support of Senate Bill 333. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in support? Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support to Senate Bill 333? I don't see anyone. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in support of Senate Bill 333, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you. We will move to testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 333. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and committee. My name is Elise Monroy Marsala. I'm with Bell's Case Government Affairs, and I'm here today on behalf of our client, Blockchains Incorporated. I'm here today on behalf of Blockchains in opposition of Senate Bill 333. We have submitted a letter to committee staff that we would direct your attention to. Unfortunately, it got to committee staff late, so I'm not sure if you have that yet, but we do have printed copies that we can point you to. Excuse me. Senator Neal has met with representatives of Blockchains a few times this legislative session, and we really appreciate her efforts to meet with us. However, Blockchain still has concerns about some of the vague terms and lack of defined processes in Senate Bill 333. Blockchains supports the intent to develop a consumer protection program, but again, the concerns around the vagueness leave us in opposition today. Additionally, I would just like to point the committee's attention to a story that was posted in the Nevada Current yesterday called "State Gambling Regulators Ask Feds to Help Combating Illegal Offshore Betting." The story reports that the Gaming Control Board's request to have federal regulators and federal agencies support an offshore gaming activity intervention. I bring this to your attention today in relation to Senate Bill 333 because we know at least some of the people and organizations that are engaged in crypto businesses are doing their work from other countries. The Gaming Control Board is a very resourced agency, and the regulatory rules around gaming are very well established. So if they are struggling to tamp down on bad actors, we worry about the FID's ability to fully implement Senate Bill 333 to its intended extent to capture bad actors and protect Nevadans. So for these reasons, we are in opposition of the bill, and we'd be happy to answer any questions offline. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony today. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 333? Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 333, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. We will move to testimony in neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? I don't see anyone. I do see a couple people walking up in Las Vegas. Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Sandy O'Loughlin. That's Olaughlin, Commissioner for the Financial Institutions Division, and I'm just here for questions.
I don't believe we have any questions at this time. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in neutral to Senate Bill 333, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you so much, Senator. Would you like to give any closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you for that. Senator Neal, for the record, I just need to clarify something really quick. When I mentioned that gaming, that in the interim revenue committee, that gaming was, we were having a conversation about gaming using crypto. Gaming has not adopted the policy to use cryptocurrency. We had an informational conversation where I asked the Federal Reserve to come in and have a conversation with the interim revenue committee, because I wanted the interim revenue committee to fully understand, number one, what was happening on the Federal Reserve side in regards to crypto and how they were tracking it. But gaming is not, and as far as I know, they have not adopted it. They were entertaining it when we were in the interim, but they have not adopted it. And so the analogy that it would be hard for FID of gaming, it actually doesn't apply because gaming is not in the space with crypto. And then the final thing I would say is that I appreciate you, Chairwoman, and this committee hearing SB 333. I think it is a consumer fraud issue. I think we need to act in the space, even if we're new in the space. But we at least need to put a baby toe into the issue to try to figure out who's playing and try to take care of some of the folks who actually are, because there are 9,000 that have been reported from the FBI who have been affected by a cryptocurrency scam. And that may not seem like a lot, but that's a lot in terms of the amount of revenue that those families or individuals potentially could have lost between $1,900 and $11,000. And there is no way to get that money back or recover that money. And I think for a senior who could potentially lose even $3,200 or $9,000 in one setting or one transaction, I think is a hard problem to solve for them, because they're not going to recover it. And even young people who think that this is a fun new thing and to have a wallet in the crypto space. But I think we need to at least start moving in the direction of trying to protect our citizens against this particular kind of fraud. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and I 100% agree with you. We definitely need to put some protections for our citizens in our state. This is definitely a new space, and a lot of money is being lost, and there's a lot of fraud happening. Like you said, whether it's 1 or 9,000, it's too many. So thank you so much for bringing this bill forward. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 333. I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 336, which is a regulation on certain healing arts. Senator, you may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola, members of the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. Chair, I want to thank you for letting me present from Las Vegas. I really appreciate your indulgence. We had a graduation in my family today over at UNLV, and just got over from the UNLV campus, and it means a lot to me to be able to attend in person, so thank you so much for your indulgence. Proud to present my first bill before Assembly Commerce and Labor. I'm a former member of this committee from when I represented Assembly District 12 in the Assembly, and really proud of all the work that the committee does. For the record, my name is James Orenshaw. I represent State Senate District 21 down here in Southern Nevada. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you today and present Senate Bill 336 in its first reprint, which pertains to the expansion of exemptions for certain practitioners of healing arts, allowing them to practice within the scope of their authority without being subject to the provisions governing other healthcare professionals. In addition, Senate Bill 336, as amended over in the other house, authorizes certified registered nurse anesthetists to work at their scope of practice in prescribing controlled substances and dangerous drugs, which include anesthetics, if they are working in a critical access hospital in Nevada. And critical access hospital is defined in the bill, and it is pursuant to federal statute. Senate Bill 336, I believe, is essential as it recognizes the diverse range of healthcare professionals and their unique expertise, ensuring that they are not unfairly constrained by regulations designed for other disciplines. To provide some context, existing law stipulates that provisions regulating the practice of physicians, physician assistants, perfusionists, and practitioners of respiratory care do not apply to those practicing other healing arts within their scope of authority. This bill aims to extend similar exemptions to other practitioners of the healing arts, such as dentists, nurses, osteopathic physicians, physician's assistants, podiatrists, and optometrists. This proposed change to the law in Senate Bill 336, I believe, is significant because it acknowledges the importance of allowing healthcare professionals to practice within the scope of their training and expertise without being subject to regulations that may not be applicable to them or appropriate for their specific disciplines. The second part of this bill, as I briefly noted, is an amendment that was adopted over in the Senate to address a conflict between the nursing practice statute, which allows certified registered nurse anesthetists to select, order, and administer anesthetics. However, certified registered nurse anesthetists are not included in the provisions of statute that list the persons able to possess and administer controlled substances. This expansion of the scope of practice reflects the pivotal role of these nurse anesthetists in our healthcare system. And I've been working with Mr. Osborne, who I believe is up in Carson City, and also with Susan Fisher from the McDonald Carano Law Firm. And there is an amendment that should be on Nellis, which is proposed by Ms. Fisher, to the bill, and had the chance to discuss that with her and with Mr. Osborne, and that is a friendly amendment that we would like to accept if the bill moves forward. And Chair, I'm happy to kind of give you an overview of the bill. I'm very lucky to have Dr. Royal and Mr. Green here, who have a lot of expertise in that area. I'll give you a brief overview, and if it's okay with you, Chair, I would turn it over to them, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. Sections 1, 2.2, and 3 through 5 detail the exemptions for dentists, nurses, osteopathic physicians, physician's assistants, podiatrists, and optometrists, ensuring they can practice within the boundaries of their authority without being subject to the provisions governing other healthcare professionals. This will enable these practitioners to provide the best possible care for their patients while still adhering to the highest standard of their respective professions. Section 6 of the bill has important implications for disciplinary actions and investigations involving practitioners of the healing arts. It states that the provisions outlined in sections 1, 2.2, and 3 through 5 apply to any conduct by a practitioner before, on, or after the effective date of this bill, which has not been the subject of a final order from the relevant regulatory boards. In addition, Section 6 requires these boards to terminate any investigation or disciplinary proceedings for conduct that falls outside the scope of their jurisdiction. Section 2.4 requires the State Board of Nursing to issue a certificate of registration to practice as a certified registered nurse anesthetist to a qualified applicant and adopt regulations governing the practice of such nurses. Sections 2.6, 5.1, 5.5, and 5.9 authorize a certified registered nurse anesthetist to order, prescribe, possess, and administer controlled substances, poisons, dangerous drugs, and devices to treat a person under the care of a licensed physician when working in a critical access hospital before, during, after surgery or childbirth. And again, we are open to accepting the amendment proposed by Ms. Fisher regarding the certified registered nurse anesthetists working at critical care hospitals, being under the supervision of a licensed physician. However, this broadening of authority does not come without its checks and balances. Any CRNA found to unlawfully possess, prescribe, or administer a controlled substance, dangerous drug, or poison would be subject to discipline and criminal and civil penalties, mirroring the stringent laws governing other practitioners of the healing arts. There's a 2/3 majority vote on Senate Bill 336, Chair. The 2/3 voting requirement to the bill applies because of the provisions incorporated in its first reprint. Sections 5.1, 5.5, and 5.9 revise the definition of practitioner to include a CRNA, a certified registered nurse anesthetist, who orders, prescribes, possesses, or administers controlled substances, poisons, dangerous drugs, or devices. And because of this new authorization, these CRNAs will have to comply with Nevada revised statutes 453.221, 453.226, and NRS 639.170. These statutes require a practitioner who deals with controlled substances or dangerous drugs to register with the State Board of Pharmacy and pay an initial and a renewal fee of $300 for authorization to dispense controlled substances or dangerous drugs, or both. So therefore, the bill requires a 2/3 majority vote. And Chair, members of the committee, when working on this bill on the other side, I had to do a double take when I was reading in the bill about administering poisons. That's existing law in the Nevada revised statutes, and that's existing terminology in the statute. With your indulgence, Chair, if I could turn it over to Dr. Royal and to Mr. Green, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Chair Mazzola and committee members, my name is Dr. Daniel Royal. I'm a licensed osteopathic and homeopathic physician in the state of Nevada, as well as a licensed attorney with the State Bar. My name is Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L, Royal, R-O-Y-A-L. And I'm in support of Senate Bill 336, as introduced by Senator James Orenshaw, who's worked with the Legislative Council Bureau this last year in helping to get the phraseology correct. So Senate Bill 336 introduces the phrase in NRS chapters where prescription rights are at issue, such as that chapter says that any person, or I'm talking about in Senate Bill 336, that any person permitted to practice any other healing art under this title who does so within the scope of that authority. So this phrase already exists in NRS chapter 630.047, subsection 1E for the allopathic or the MD board. And Senator Orenshaw has now worked with the LCB to have this phrase included in other NRS chapters of all Nevada healthcare boards that have some regulatory authority for prescription drugs. This is why it's not being included in NRS 629 that affects boards where prescription drugs are not at issue. But it should be noted that NRS 629.079 contains a provision in subsection 1 that a jurisdictional analysis is to be made where dual licensure is concerned. And the healthcare licensing board that receives a complaint against a dual licensee shall, quote, refer the complaint to the other healthcare licensing board within 5 days after making the determination, unquote. But NRS 629.079 is not always sufficient. So with respect to dual licensees, the medical boards have overlapping jurisdiction to regulate the prescribing and administering of drugs by a dual licensed individual, unless some other provision of law removes such overlapping jurisdiction. So for example, because homeopathic medicine in the state of Nevada is a separate healing art from allopathic medicine, the provisions of law governing allopathic medicine do not apply to a homeopathic physician when the homeopathic physician is practicing within the authorized scope of his practice of homeopathic medicine. So in other words, the allopathic or MD board is prohibited from taking disciplinary action against a dual licensee who is licensed by both the allopathic board and another healthcare board for actions relating to the prescribing or administering of drugs so long as such prescribing or administering of drugs falls within the authorized scope of practice of the dual licensee's other healthcare board. Now in chapter 633 of the NRS, which governs the practice of osteopathic medicine, NRS 633.171 subsection 1 does not apply to some healthcare licensees. Such as dentistry and podiatry. But unlike the provisions governing the allopathic board, this statute does not exempt the practice of homeopathic medicine from the provisions of law governing the practice of osteopathic medicine. So consequently, in areas where the practice of osteopathic medicine and the practice of homeopathic medicine overlap, such as the prescribing or administering of drugs, a homeopathic dual licensee is subject to the provisions of NRS 633 of the NRS and the jurisdiction of the osteopathic board. Now, conversely, the Allopathic Entity Board lacks such authority, and the Nevada Supreme Court case, Nevada Mining Association versus Erdos, the court stated, quote, when the legislature chooses one option and not another, it is presumed that the legislature did so purposely, unquote. Now, an implied removal of the authority of a healthcare board would occur only if that authority irreconcilably conflicts with the statutes and regulations authorizing a healthcare licensee to practice or administer drugs. So in summary, because NRS 630.047 subsection 1E exempts a healthcare professional who is licensed as an allopathic physician, but who is also licensing with the scope of practice of a dual licensee's other healthcare board, the allopathic board is not authorized to take disciplinary action against such dual licensee for prescribing or administering drugs so long as that dual licensee is acting within the scope of practice of his other healthcare board. In contrast, because such a provision of law does not exist with the other healthcare boards to provide a similar exemption for a dual licensed healthcare professional, a secondary healthcare board is authorized to take disciplinary action against a dual licensee for prescribing or administering drugs in a manner that the secondary healthcare board determines to violate its NRS, even if such prescribing or administering of drugs is within the scope of practice of the dual licensee's primary healthcare board. Now here, Senate Bill 336 remedies this conflict in the law by resolving this patent unfairness to dual licensees that prevents Nevada patients from exercising their choice of medical treatment options. We feel that this is good public policy. Thank you.
Chair, with your indulgence, Mr. Green, I think wanted to speak, or correct, Mr. Green.
Yeah, my name for the record is Charles Green, C-H-A-R-L-E-S-G-R-E-E-N. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of the Nevada Board of Homeopathic Medical Examiners. Homeopathic Board President, Dr. Sean Devlin, a dual licensed physician with both the Osteopathic and Homeopathic Board, has asked me to represent him here in today's hearing. The Homeopathic Board wholeheartedly endorses 336. We appreciate Senator James Oroshal's work on this important matter. Essentially, we have two competing forms of medical care here: a sick care system where the disease systems are managed, and number two, a healthcare system where optimal wellness is maximized. This often leads to competing forms of treatment, including the administration or prescribing of drugs, are at issue. Homeopathic physicians are allowed to use medications for off-label and or alternative purposes as permitted pursuant to NAC 630A.014, and that's subsection 1E. For example, last year, a homeopathic physician was disciplined by another healthcare board for practicing as he was trained, educated, and licensed to do. In this case, the homeopathic physician was using a low-dose form of chemotherapy for the treatment of his cancer patients. His particular treatment is known as insulin potentiation therapy, or IPT, where insulin is used to lower blood sugar so that a lesser amount of chemotherapy may be used, such as 10 to 20% of the recommended full dose. This is because cancer uses 20 times more sugar than normal cells and lowers the blood sugar, making cancer much more vulnerable to chemotherapy. This treatment is safe. It has been used since the 1930s for the treatment of cancer. Patients opt for this treatment because it minimizes the side effects of chemotherapy, such as a loss of hair, anemia, and depression of one's white blood cells needed for immune function. However, our healthcare licensing board took exception with this homeopathic licensee's use of this alternative approach to the treatment of cancer. Because the homeopathic physician was not using full-dose chemotherapy, he was found to be practicing below the standards of medical care for the other healthcare board with which he had dual license. It should be noted here that we have other physicians in the state of Nevada who are dual licensed with the homeopathic board that use similar alternative cancer treatments for their patients, but only if they are dual licensed as an allopathic physician with the medical board will they be allowed to practice their healing arts as homeopathic physicians, where the subscription and administration of drugs are at issue. SB 336 is simply good public policy. The citizens of the state of Nevada should be allowed to make choices in their medical care. However, the current overlap of jurisdiction over this administrating of prescriptions of drugs has created a problem to limit these choices by inhibiting homeopathic physicians from practicing as they are fully authorized and licensed to do. Well, this unfairness needs to be remedied. The remedy is found in SB 336 and now needs to be expressed applicable for this healthcare board. And this is in the best interest of dual licensing and the patients alike. Thank you.
Chair Marzola, I believe Mr. Osborne is in Carson City just to speak to the part of the bill dealing with certified registered nurse anesthetists, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. Blaine Osborne with Nevada Rural Hospital Partners for the record, here to help present Senate Bill 336. We sincerely thank Senator Orenshaw for bringing this bill to clarify these scope of practice discrepancies, not only as it relates to the duly licensed providers, but also for certified registered nurse anesthetists. You all have heard a lot about this issue so far this session, about the existing scope of practice discrepancy between the Nevada Administrative Code 632.500, which allows CRNAs to select, order, and administer anesthetics. However, CRNAs are not listed in NRS 453.375, which lists the persons able to possess and administer those drugs. Additionally, NAC 449.388 adds that CRNAs can administer anesthesia under the direction of the operating practitioner or anesthesiologist that is immediately available. What we're doing with this bill, and with the friendly amendment that you'll hear about from the anesthesiologists, is we're sending a clear message to the Board of Nursing and to the Board of Pharmacy that yes, CRNAs can select, order, administer these anesthetic agents under the supervision of a physician when they are in a critical access hospital. This will allow the CRNAs to get a controlled substance license in the state of Nevada, which they cannot do currently. In our 3 critical access hospitals who provide obstetrics and routine delivery services, CRNAs are the only sources of anesthesia for these patients. This discrepancy puts those services at risk, and we're grateful to get to a good compromise that solves this issue this session with Senate Bill 336. Thank you, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Senator, does that end your presentation?
Yes, Chair, thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions from Las Vegas.
Thank you so much. Committee members, are there any questions? Assemblywoman Duran.
Thank you for the presentation, and as you know, I appreciate the fact that we do need more care. So on your last comment that you just said, you said the CNAs or the CRNAs will start to get a license. So does this mean that they're going to expand out of the rurals? Because this is specifically just for the rurals, but your last comment said this is a way that they get a license to prescribe. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure, absolutely. Blaine Osborne, Nevada Rural Hospital Partners for the record. Madam Chair, through you to the Assemblywoman.
And you can go direct.
Thank you. No, this allows them to get a controlled substance license so that they are able to order and prescribe those anesthetic agents. That has been the confusion. That is what they can't get currently. There isn't a mechanism for the Board of Pharmacy to be able to issue those licenses to them currently because they are not listed specifically in that NRS 453.375. So that is not expanding their scope. They are trained and are able to use those drugs. What this does is it gives the Board of Pharmacy the ability to issue those licenses to them. And yes, they are limited to just the 13 critical access hospitals in the state. They cannot be doing those things outside of those 13 with this bill.
Thank you for that. So it's just for the nurses that are working in the rural areas, and what if they transfer to the city? Are they going to be allowed to utilize that license?
Thank you, Blaine Osborne, Nevada Rural Hospital Partners for the record. Yes, it is just for those certified registered nurse anesthetists who are in the 13 critical access hospitals. They would not be allowed to order, administer, prescribe in any other facility.
Assemblyman Carter.
And basically, you've already answered what I wanted to ask, but I wanted to get it on the record, so to speak, and I've asked this on every single thing. We've seen a proliferation of nurse anesthetists in surrounding states, online, through mail order, opening up ketamine clinics. And I want to make doubly sure that we're not going to turn Nevada into a home for these, pseudo mental health ketamine clinics that really are just have somebody that has access to the anesthetics.
Thank you. Blaine Osborne, Nevada Rural Hospital Partners, for the record. Yes, Assemblyman, you're absolutely correct. And this bill does not change that, does not allow for CRNAs to come here and open their own ketamine clinics. Specifically, we are limiting it to the setting of the critical access hospital when they're providing those services. Thank you.
Committee members, any additional questions? I don't see any. And just for clarification again, so we are all clear. Prior to any bill being passed, CRNAs could work under someone, whether the hospital, the physician, and whenever they were requesting a medication, they were using the DEA number of that hospital or physician, correct?
Thank you. Blaine Osborne, Nevada Rural Hospital Partners, for the record. I think it's correct to say that. Currently, they are not allowed to have their own DEA number in the state of Nevada. So yes, they fall under the physician. The physician would have to sign off on those orders or make that order themselves.
So if this bill is passed, it creates an avenue for them to have their own DEA number. But again, not being able to use it for everything, only very specific to certain types of hospitals or facilities, correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, last chance. And with that, we will move to testimony in support of Senate Bill 336. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in support? Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin when you're ready.
Isaac Tenorio, I-Z-A-C-K, Tenorio, T-E-N-R-I-O. With Strategy 360, today representing Churchill County. We urge the committee to pass this bill. We think it's important for our rural Nevadans to have the access to health care, and we think this bill does just that. We think it's important for members in rural counties, specifically in Churchill, to have access to controlled substances, and we think that this bill has protective measures that will prevent from them to administer in other jurisdictions. So we think it's a good bill and it's good policy, and we urge you guys to support this bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support to Senate Bill 336? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you'd like to testify in support of Senate Bill 336, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hey, my name is Matt Walker. I'm the CEO at White Pine County Hospital District in Ely, Nevada, and I'm calling in support of SB 336. Specifically, the language pertaining to CRNA's ability to possess and administer necessary medications for their practice, under the supervision of a physician, of course. As a very rural critical access hospital, and given the enormous shortage of anesthesiologists in the country, our surgical and OB services rely on our nurse anesthetists. Outside of our hospital and clinics, the nearest healthcare to us is over 200 miles away. Heck, the nearest Walmart to Ely, Nevada is over 200 miles away. If you need to pick up a gallon of milk and it's a 3.5-hour drive one way, it's annoying. But if you're in labor and you're trying to get to the nearest OB before you have a baby, 3.5 hours is dangerous. Thankfully, we are able to provide OB services in Ely and a myriad of other surgical services. But the only reason we can provide these services is because of our CRNAs. Our nurse anesthetists work under the supervision of a provider as a collaborative member of the surgical team. We're grateful for your consideration and hope you support this bill and support rural health care.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Robin Dunkhorst. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Humboldt General Hospital of Winnemucca, Nevada, as well as a 23-year practicing registered nurse within our facility. On behalf of our facility and the access to health care for rural residents of Humboldt County, I thank you for this opportunity today to testify in support of Senate Bill 336. To serve and provide access to care for rural patients in our community, it is very important that we're able to continue providing obstetrical services and emergency surgery within our coverage area. And in order to do so, certified registered nurse anesthetists are a very imperative piece of our puzzle. I've personally worked the entirety of my career with CRNAs at my side, and there's no one I trust more with airways, critical medications, anesthetic agents, and dangerous drugs more than CRNAs. Their rigorous and competitive schooling process easily rallies against the most advanced graduate-level clinical nursing degrees, such as family nurse practitioner. CRNAs serve a crucial role in healthcare and are critical to the viability of surgical and obstetrical services in critical access hospitals. CRNAs should have the authority to be able to order medications, as they are the experts in anesthesia medications in our critical access hospitals. And this, of course, would be under the supervision and with collaboration of a doctor. Doctors do not have a general issue with supervising CRNAs from a collaborative realm, but they do not feel the current practice is fully safe, as they are the ordering provider of medications that the CRNAs are the experts of. This has been an ongoing issue, and our doctors do feel general supervision is appropriate, but that CRNAs should have full prescriptive authority within critical access hospitals. With Nevada's healthcare shortage and the impact that it has on the rural areas, being able to support CRNAs by allowing prescriptive authority with doctor supervision is a simple ask. CRNAs are experts in their nursing field and a bridge to cost-effective, safe delivery of surgical and OB care in critical access hospitals. Please support the rural critical access hospitals and pass SB 336. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 247, you are unmuted on our end. Is your phone muted?
Hello. My name is Robert Carnahan, RN, CEO of Banner Churchill Community Hospital in Fallon, Nevada. Banner Churchill Community Hospital supports SB 336. Our hospital and our physicians support the ability for CRNAs to prescribe and dispense all anesthetic agents that the CRNAs are trained to provide. We believe that there is a highly collaborative approach to our surgeons and our CRNAs. They are highly involved in patient care and positive outcomes of our patients. The physicians value that delivery of anesthesia care that the CRNAs provide, as well as a valued respect for them. Not having the CRNAs with the ability to prescribe anesthetic agents will put us at risk for discontinuing services that are important for our Nevada community, our Nevadans' access to care, and also to mention that we also support Naval Air Station Fallon. Obviously, this is most notably in our OBGYN area. With limited access to OB services in the state, especially in the rural communities, it is imperative that our CRNAs have this prescriptive capacity. Not having these types of surgical services will place a strain on already burdened healthcare system in Nevada. You've probably heard many times creating that OB desert. Other states also have adopted this authority for CRNAs. At Banner Churchill Community Hospital, our volumes demonstrate how we contribute to the overall healthcare delivery in the state. We typically have about 800 general surgical cases per year. We deliver about 300 to 325 average deliveries per year, and our CRNAs also provide about 100 epidurals per year. It is essential that CRNAs are able to provide these much-needed services in our community and at our hospital. Therefore, we are very supportive of SB 336 and the CRNA's ability to prescribe these anesthetic agents. Thank you.
Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you. We will move to testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 336. Is there anyone here in Carson City? Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Susan Fisher, S-U-S-A-N, F-I-S-H-E-R, with McDonald Carano speaking today on behalf of Nevada State Society of Anesthesiologists. We are opposed to Senate Bill 336 the way it appears to you at the moment. However, if, through the wisdom of this committee, if you do accept the friendly amendment, we will move to support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. My name is Mary Nakashima Nielsen, here on behalf of the Perkins Company and the Nevada State Medical Association. As written, we are opposed to 336, but with the amendment, we are in support, and I think no one can give greater testimony to the importance of CRNAs as a part of a collaborative care team than the executives you've just heard from. So hopefully we'd urge you to adopt the amendment and move the bill forward. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 336? I don't see anyone walking up. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. We will move to neutral testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral to Senate Bill 336? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Senator, would you like to give any closing remarks?
Chair Marzola, members of the committee, thank you for hearing this bill with late Friday afternoon. I know with all the deadlines approaching, I appreciate your making time to hear it. I believe that this bill will be better for our dual and multiple licensed practitioners of the healing arts. I think that the amendment in the Assembly and the amendment that I hope would be adopted here in the Senate will help rural health care, and I would ask the committee to consider moving it forward. I appreciate your indulgence in allowing me to present from Las Vegas. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for being with us this afternoon and taking some time away from your family. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 336. I will now open up for public comment. Please address your remarks to issues that fall within the jurisdiction of this committee. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes. Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to give public comment? Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to give public comment? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Callers, if you'd like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the members this afternoon? This will conclude our meeting for today. Our next meeting will be Monday, May 15th. This meeting is adjourned.